Well, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our, I don't know how many this is, maybe fourth Facebook Live this week. And I am here with Coach Susan, and I know you love and appreciate her wisdom and her gentle spirit. So let me know, as we normally do, that we are live so that we're not talking to ourselves, because we have a very important topic today. So are you here, YouTubers? Raise your hand. Let us know you're here. Are you here, Facebookers? Raise your hand. Let us know that you have seen us on live and you're here and we can have a conversation together. It always takes a few minutes. Thank you. You know what? You are always the first one on. I want to meet you someday.
I know. I was thinking the same.
Yeah, you're always the first one on. So grateful for you. And Karen will be our tech support. Thank you, Karen, for letting us know that YouTube is working, but we still aren't seeing anybody from Facebook. So let's get some love and appreciation. There we go. Lorianne, you're always the first one on Facebook too. So I appreciate you and letting us know that we are live. We have an important topic today. We're talking about, can you have a relationship with a liar? Or how do you have a relationship with a liar? So if that's you, and I'm not saying it's your husband, it might be your mother or your father or a sister or brother or your boss or your child, your adult child, what does that look like for you? What's the biggest obstacle? What's the biggest challenge for you in having a relationship with someone who has a pattern of not telling you the truth? Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. I have met you. Oh, I'm glad I have met you. It just says T, so I'm not sure who that is. But I'm glad that I have met you.
Right, and just a reminder, I just wanted to remind everybody, Leslie, this is the public Facebook page. So we would love your comments if you're feeling safe to do that. But just a reminder that anybody can read your comments.
Yeah, so you might have to disguise them some, but okay. Tamara, okay, good to know. So not safe. Okay, Marilyn says, I don't feel safe with someone who tells me, who doesn't feel alive. You can never be or feel safe. Yeah. What else is, what else, how else does it affect the relationship? When you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't tell you the truth, whether it's in big ways or little ways. Like maybe they don't even tell you the truth about their feelings. Like you see they're upset and you say, how are you feeling? Fine, I'm fine. Nothing's bothering me. And you know something's bothering you, but they're not truthful with you. You can't trust them. Yeah, you can't trust them. No trust. Yeah. So that would be mine. I wouldn't trust a person who lied to me. I wouldn't trust that I know them if they're not telling me really how they feel or what they think. I don't trust them with certain areas of my life if they're not telling me the truth. Yeah. So how do you do life with someone like that? How do you have a relationship with them? Yeah, you don't feel safe, no trust. These are biggies. This isn't just like, oh, it bothers me, right? It makes you feel constantly anxious and fearful, depending on how much control they have over you or how much power they have in your life. Like if they have joint access to your bank account and they're lying and you don't trust them, that feels pretty scary, especially if you have some money in there, right? Or if you're sleeping next to someone who you don't trust or feel safe with, that can create a lot of anxiety in your body day after day after day after day. You hold them at a distance. This is my biggest issue. My husband had lied and deceived me 30 years. I can't get over it. He wants me to just trust him now. I can't. Nor should you, Carol. Nor should you. Don't feel guilty about that at all. He has proven himself untrustworthy. And the Bible tells us in Proverbs 25, putting trust in an untrustworthy person, putting your trust or confidence in an unreliable person who's already shown you for 30 years that they're not to be trusted, putting trust in an unreliable person is foolish. It says it's like walking on a broken foot or chewing on a broken tooth. Like it hurts. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, it's done terrible things to my health. Of course. So I think we're all clear that it's really not possible to have a relationship of any substance. You might have an acquaintance, you might have, a forced business relationship with someone, or you might go to Thanksgiving with your parents who have lied to you and, you might be polite, but I think we've agreed that it's not possible to have a close, safe, intimate, trusting relationship. We're not even talking about love. You can love a liar, right? But you don't feel safe with one. Right? You might have an adult child who's a drug addict who lies to you all the time, and you may still love them with all your heart, but you don't trust them or you don't feel safe with them, right? There's no peace. There's no peace. And so, Susan, I want you to know that God understands how you feel. And we're going to read some verses about that from the scripture, just so that you understand that there's nothing wrong with you for feeling the way you feel or distancing yourself from someone who's regularly lying to you. Okay, so we put up the Proverbs 25:19 verse in there, but let me just read a couple others. Here's one. This is Psalm 52, 3. 2 and 3. All day long you plot destruction. Your tongue cuts like a sharp razor. You're an expert at telling lies. You love evil more than good and lies more than truth. You love to destroy others with your words, you liar. So the Bible is saying that lies can destroy you. Lies can harm you. Yeah, the most scary thing that happens when he lies to you, start doubting yourself and the truth you know. I'm still recovering from mental torture. And hold that thought, Blake, because we're going to come right back to that in just a minute, how it impacts your relationship, not with the liar, but your relationship with yourself. Your relationship with yourself. She's just brought up an excellent point. Let me read you one more verse that I think is really, really powerful. We've talked about boundaries here, haven't we? We talked about what boundaries are and what boundaries aren't. What boundaries are is what I will do, and what boundaries are what I won't do. This is who I am. This is who I'm not. This is what I'll tolerate. This is what I won't tolerate. Look at what it says in the Bible about what someone will do and won't do. Psalm 101. I'm just going to start with verse 2.5. I will lead a life of integrity in my own home. I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar. Wouldn't you love your husband to have that boundary for himself? I hate all who deal crookedly. Will have nothing to do with them. I will reject perverse ideas and stay away from every evil. I will not tolerate people who slander their neighbor. I will not endure conceit or pride. I will search for faithful people to be my friends. Only those who are above reproach will be allowed to serve me. I will not allow deceivers to serve in my house and liars to stay in my presence. My daily task will be to ferret out the wicked and free the city from the Lord, and free the city of the Lord from their grip. This is David talking. I will not allow liars in my presence to serve in my house. That's how strong he was about this, because of the damage they do. The damage they do to your family. If you have a business, the damage they do to your business. If you're in a church, the damage they do to a church. They destroy. The Bible says this. Susan had a couple of verses that she wants to read to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to read about the 6 things the Lord hates, right? If you're wondering what does, yeah, it isn't. Divorce isn't in there. So are you wondering what are the 6 things? So this comes from Proverbs 6:16 through 19. There are 6 things that the Lord hates. 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. That false witness who breathes out lies, that made the list of things that is hated from God.
Divorce didn't. A woman who divorces her husband didn't make that list. I'm not saying divorce is pleasing to God. He's sad about divorce. But someone who lies to you and who deals treacherously with you, those are the things the Lord hates. And the consequence of those things may be divorce. How does that sit with you? What, as you listen to us read those verses, put your hand on the heart of your temple of the Holy Spirit. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Put your hand on your heart and ask, Lord, what do you want me to take away from those verses for me? What's important for me to remember? Those were a lot of verses. What's important for me to know about relationships with liars, so that I don't get guilt tripped into saying, oh, you need to trust me again just because I said I was sorry. No, I don't. No, I don't. Yeah, Deanne says she's questioning everything, even the little things.
Mm. Yeah, once a pattern of lie is established, you can't really believe anything, right? Because you don't know when a lie is happening and when it's not. And so everything becomes as if it could be false.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I mean, think of this as a parent. When you found your kids lying in high school and stuff, it was hard to trust anything they said anymore, right? Until they proved themselves trustworthy again. And so please don't beat yourself up or feel guilty that they've proven themselves a very good liar. Like, you didn't know they were lying until you found hard evidence. And so when someone is a really good liar, you don't know. You don't have X-ray vision into their heart. You don't know. It just comes out. God shows you somehow. You found a receipt, you found evidence, and now you know they've been lying to you for a long time about something, but you believed them because they are very good at lying. How could you ever trust them again when they're so good at lying? Because you can't discern a lie from truth sometimes. Yeah. What about when they are calling you a liar for years? Yeah, sometimes they do. And you have to ask yourself, have I been lying? And sometimes we have. Like, we're not totally truthful sometimes about what we feel, because if we told our husbands the truth, they would trample it. So if I told my husband, I'm scared of you and I don't trust you anymore, that might result in some harsher abuse. And we're not up for that. And we shouldn't be up for that. Right. And so even God has, thou shalt not lie is one of the 10 commandments. So I'm not advocating lying any more than I'm advocating divorce. But I do think there's a priority in God's hierarchy of values, just like there's a priority in all of our hierarchy of values, right? So if I value saving money, but I value generosity, which gets a better, what gets more important in certain times, it depends. So God values telling the truth, but let's look at reality in the scriptures. When Rahab was guarding the Israel spies from being captured in Jericho, she lied. She said they went that way. Right? Why? Because she was protecting people from being murdered. I believe that Christians who hid Jews in their closets in World War II and said, no, they're not here, lied, but God honored their courage. So there are times that we may not be 100% truthful with someone because of danger to us or to someone else. And so there are times when I think, according to God's values, there are things that are more important in saving a life, and saying they're not here or they went that way is important to God. So I don't want to get into those discussions, but sometimes we all may not always tell the truth. So we're not talking about that kind of thing. We're talking about lies that cause harm, lies that intentionally mislead you into thinking one way when it's really another way.
Yeah, Chelsea's asking, how can you move forward when the lies have been done for so long? My husband has been a very good liar for a long time.
Well, Chelsea, just ask yourself, is it even possible to move forward? Is it even possible to move forward in a relationship with someone who is a very good liar when you can't tell whether they're lying or not?
Yeah, I think you can move forward on your own, making sure that you're protected and that you're not falling into the lies. But within the relationship, Leslie's absolutely correct. You can't move forward on your own in a relationship that's deceitful.
Yeah. So we're going to switch gears a little bit based on some of the comments that I've seen. And also Susan and I talked about this. I think it's hard to, like, you're having a hard time, Chelsea, saying, wow, it's really over. It's like when someone hits your kid with their car and they kill your kid, and maybe that person was you, or you backed out of your driveway, or your husband did it, and no one intended to kill the kid. They were just being a little careless, but the kid is really dead. Like, the kid is not coming back to life. And I think chronic deceit kills trust. Just like if someone molested your child, that would kill trust. I don't care if it's your mother who molested your child or your father. It kills trust. And you probably will never go back to the way it was, where your kids go for the weekend to grandma's house or grandpa's house, right? It's not going to happen. And so when you are married to someone who is a chronic liar and really good at it, how could you ever rebuild broken trust with that person? I think it's been killed. At least it would be for me. If any of you have some great ideas on how you do that, let us know. But I don't know of any, and I have never met anybody who's done that, who's been married to a chronic liar and been able to feel safe with that person again, right? And they truly might be repentant. I'm not saying he isn't, but you can never know. And so you're constantly living in that fear and anxiety, because when's the next lie going to be coming out? And why would you want to live that way? Does God want you to live that way? Yeah, chronic deceit kills trust. The hardest lie for me is I love you, right? And, in their own twisted way, they may think they do. But when you love someone, you don't intentionally harm them. Love does no harm, right? And when you lie to someone in a way that harms them, then you're causing harm. But what about this? I'm going to switch the question now. So how does deceit affect your relationship with yourself? With yourself. The Bible says we lie. We talked about this yesterday. We have beliefs that we lie, that we have beliefs that we believe that are lies. Like I'm worthless. Like I'm not strong enough. I can't handle it. We believe those things. How does that impact your relationship with yourself? The Bible says we lie to ourselves. It says that by nature, we exchange the truth of God for a lie. The heart is deceitful above all else and desperately wicked. So not only do people lie to us, we lie to us. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I can handle it. He's just cheated on me 4 times. Maybe this time he won't. We live in hopium, which is a lie. We live in beating ourselves up. We're worthless. We're failures. We can't do anything right. I'm no good. I might as well, just give up. We tell ourselves those lies. We believe Satan's lies. How does that impact your relationship with you? And do you even have a relationship with you? What does that look like? That I'm not important enough to be treated with integrity. Yeah. I've never believed who I was made to be in God's eyes. Yeah. How does that impact your relationship with you? When we allow Satan to fill our mind with lies like, oh, God doesn't really care about you. John 3:16, that doesn't apply to you. It applies to everyone but you. Yeah. How does that affect your relationship with you? I think this is a really important question. God calls us to walk in truth. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Maybe your first journey of healing, ladies, isn't about your husband, isn't about fixing the relationship out there. Remember, we talked about this internal, external kind of dynamic that we've been using this chart, internal, external. Maybe what you need is to feel the truth about who you are and who God says you are, despite what your husband says. How might that change you? Might not change your marriage, but how might that change you and the way that you treat yourself? Someone once said, and I'm pondering it, so I'm even a little bit nervous about saying out loud because I'm not sure I buy it. But someone once said that we allow people to abuse us to the degree that we abuse ourselves. Right? And I'm not sure it's true. I'm still pondering it, but I'd be loving to have a discussion about it. That if we don't think we're worth anything, then we let people treat us like we're not worth anything. If we don't feel valuable, then we let people treat us as if we're just objects. If we don't feel important, even to our own selves, that God has created us with purpose and value, then we allow other people to treat us as if we're not. And people will treat us. People treat me that way. People treat other people that way. But it doesn't make it true. Like I don't get hooked by it. They know who I am. Yeah.
Such a good thing to ponder. What does that look like within yourself?
Yeah, Gabriella says, I agree with that. Yeah, so maybe for us in this conversation, we're having a workshop next week, If he doesn't hit you, is it still abuse? And we're going to unpack a lot of this stuff, because maybe your healing isn't about fixing him to get him to stop abusing you. Maybe your healing comes that you stop abusing you, that you stop thinking lies about yourself. Because if you're thinking lies, you're more vulnerable to believing the lies he tells you, right? I know if someone came up to me and said, oh my gosh, Leslie, you look like you're 30 years old. I don't look like I'm 30 years old, right? So I would say, you want something from me and you're really using a lot of flattery, right? So I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of, all those things. And when someone says a lie to me that may be more positive, it doesn't even feel good, because I know they're after something. It's like, I'm not going to buy it. And when they say something ugly like, hey, you're breaking up everybody's marriage with what you say, I don't believe that either, right? Because I know who I am. I'm not as easily vulnerable to other people's words about me that may not be true, both in the positive and the negative, right? Because if you know who you are and you're living in truth and walking in truth, other people's words are just other people's words, just like Jesus. They said he was a liar. He was demon possessed. And I'm sure he didn't like that they said that, but he knew who he was. It didn't derail him. His relationship with himself and his relationship with his heavenly Father were healthy and strong, even if his relationships with others, like Judas and others, were not. What might that be like for you? If just internally you could begin to switch the relationship with yourself, what might that be like?
I can imagine that would be really powerful to be able to tell yourself the truths of who God has created you to be and knows you to be, that would help you stand tall in alignment with God's word and yourself. That can make a world of difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's just look at something, because I think this is really an important conversation for us as women who may have grown up with people who told us things that, like my mom told me icky things about myself, which weren't true, but as a kid I believed them. Of course you believe your mom, right? So we may have some healing and some revisionist thinking to do in our minds, but look at this, what he says. Oh Lord, you've examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down, you know when I stand up, you know my thoughts, even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel, when I rest at home, you know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it. Lord, you go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's too great for me to even understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there too. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there, your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in the darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inward parts of my body. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. This is who you are, friend. Mm-hmm. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Do you know it? You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion. As I was woven together in the dark of the womb, you saw me before I was even born. Every day of my life is recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me? Oh God, they cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you're still with me. If only you could destroy the wicked. Get out of my life, you murderers. They blaspheme you. Their enemies misuse your name. Oh Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me, like maybe I don't believe this. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. So those are a lot of words, and I'm not going to unpack them all, but his soul knows that and believes that. How about you? When Jesus says you're loved, you're forgiven, you're precious, I don't see you with a single fault. You are my workmanship that I've created for you to do good works. You're not just an object to be a wife in a role for your husband to misuse. You're a person who has value and purpose. Do you know what that is? Have you found that? Or are you lying to yourself? I'm just a nobody. Nobody cares. I'm nothing. God cares. Your husband might not care. My mother didn't care. There are people in our life who don't care. People didn't care about Jesus. Not everybody loved him. But do you care? Do you care about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Lori's saying, when you believe what God says about you, you won't be easily pushed around by others' opinions. And what if you weren't easily pushed around by others' opinions? What difference would that make in your life? Right? It seems pretty important to believe what God says about you. It could make a major difference.
Yeah. Could make a major difference in how you show up today. It can make a major difference in the decision you make about tomorrow. Like, hey, if you really believed all this that I just read, and you really believe that, Chelsea, how might that make a difference in the way that you view your next step with what your husband is telling you? Right? You see, when you come from a strength and dignity position, I'm created in God's image and I have purpose and value. I don't just do what everybody tells me to do. I don't take my marching orders from my husband or my kids or my neighbor or my mom, right? I take my marching orders from the Lord.
Yeah, Gabrielle's saying, I feel it would be such an inner peace and a confidence that's rooted deep in Christ. It would cause me to be immovable. Immovable.
Yeah. And so if you were immovable, let's just play this out again. If you were immovable, if you were confident that you were loved, that you were valued, that you were created for purpose, and someone, your husband, your mother, whoever it is, treats you, lies to you, whatever, how might that impact you? It certainly impacts the relationship. It still impacts the relationship. People who lie to Jesus, it impacts the relationship, right? He won't tolerate it because he can see through you. We can't see through people, but once we see what they're doing, what would we do if we felt confident and we didn't need them to take care of us? If we didn't need them to approve of our decision, that we knew God approved of our decision, how might that impact what you decide, what you do? Lorianne says, I show up as a God-honoring mama and search the scriptures each day for additional wisdom. Okay. So what's your biggest obstacle in doing that? In believing what God says over what your husband says? You already know he's a liar, or maybe some of you know, maybe your husband isn't a liar, but if you already know someone's a liar, why would you believe what they say? Satan's a liar. Satan's a liar. And he is constantly trying to get you to believe lies. Why would you believe them? You already know someone's a liar.
Yeah. And back to your question, Leslie, if you've identified that you're lying to yourself in an area, why keep doing it, right? Why not turn and teach yourself to say truth? Because I think the result of it is, going back to some of your comments earlier in this live, is you don't feel safe and you don't trust. But what if you don't feel safe with yourself? What if you can't trust yourself? Right?
Right.
That's the real danger.
And you can't trust yourself. You can't trust yourself if you lie to yourself. Right? So that's the reality. Just like you can't trust someone out there who lies to you, you can't trust. So if you say, oh, I'm going to get up early tomorrow and exercise, and you don't, right? Then how are you going to trust yourself to follow through on things that are important to you? Right? If you're not reliable to your own self and follow through to your own self on what you say you're going to do, or I really value this. I really value being a good mom, and you're not. You're blowing up and yelling at your kids. You're saying, oh my gosh, I can't trust even my own values because I don't live by them. They're mere words. Right? What might be different if that changed? And you began to trust yourself and could follow through with what you said you did and you were going to do. You didn't make promises to yourself that you didn't keep. If the same promise are made over and over again, yeah, year after year, but never kept, excuse after excuse, yeah, it's the same. But we do that to ourselves, don't we? Sort of have a New Year's resolution of I'm going to do all this, and sometimes we're unrealistic. So it's helpful to be realistic about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. But to be able to say, I am going to take care of my body. Now, that may not mean I'm going to be a strict keto eater, but I am going to only drink 1 glass of wine instead of 5. Right. And that's what I'm going to do, or I'm not going to do it at all because it's not healthy for me. Right. Or I'm going to eat 1, bowl of ice cream and not the whole pint because I've made a commitment to myself. And therefore, part of being truthful to yourself and building that relationship with yourself is sometimes you have to say no to yourself because our flesh wants something that's against our values and what's good for us. At least that happens to my flesh. I don't know about anybody else's flesh, but my flesh wants 2 or 3 things that I should only have 1 of, right?
Yeah, and I think this is part of creating that internal peace and safety with yourself is taking care of yourself well. Means telling yourself good things that are true. Being able to rely on yourself, trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Is that you can create inner peace even if you don't have outer peace. Which
is totally priceless. Right? If there's a mess going on out here externally in your marriage or in your family or your home or the traffic, but you have internal peace, if you can't buy that. You can't buy that. But God offers you that. God offers you that. And so we want to open this up to some questions. That's why I had to grab my computer because we put your questions on a separate tracker and I didn't have it out. So let's talk about some questions about this and see where we can go with what we've just been talking about.
Yeah, there's lots of questions, Leslie.
Yeah. So I'll start reading the first one, Susan. We went to marriage counselor, and instead of addressing what I felt was lying and deception in my husband, he explained to my husband and I that most couples' issues is that they just don't get along because of different perceptions and opinions, and that it's not right to argue over these things, but to seek to understand one another. I spent a lot of money over that last year regaining emotional closeness, only to find out my husband still won't do his work. I'm as empty now as I was when I started a year ago. And so I'm done with marriage counseling. My question is, how do we tell the difference between deception and perception and stand our ground when we believe it's truly a deception and not just our own perception? That's a great question for you, Susan.
You're going to hand that off to me, Leslie? Yeah, I love that question.
I know you would.
Yeah, because you're right. We do carry in, when we perceive things, when we experience things, we carry in our education, our past experience, all different kinds of things come into how we experience our world and how we perceive things. So I think that's really hard to discern, right? Is this someone having a different perception? They experienced it differently. Are they telling a lie? And they may be telling a lie to themselves. But I think what can be helpful is having an honest conversation about it, asking curious questions, so that you can, say, help me understand or walk me through how you experienced that and where you're coming from, just to help you discern, is this a manipulative tactic? Is this a way to coerce you or deceive you in some way? Or is it possible they just perceived it differently than you? And also looking at that pattern, right, over time. What would you add to that, Leslie? I think this is a hard question, but an important one.
It's an important question. I don't think it's easily explained, so I'm really pondering it. So I think all of us have glasses on, right? Mm-hmm. So we all have lenses on our eyes, which is called perception, that causes us to perceive the external world a certain way. Like how many of us maybe have the glasses on that, people don't like us. We have this belief inside. So those are our glasses. We have that belief that I'm not likable. I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, and people tend to not like me, or I'm not worth liking. We have that internal lie, but belief, we'll call it a belief, it's a lie, but we have that inside. So that colors our lenses. And so let's say you're at a party and no one comes up and talks to you. Well, your perception of that party would be, no one came up to talk to me because I'm just a loser and I shouldn't have gone to that party to begin with. I'm never going to another party again because it feels so rejecting. Now, is that the truth, that everybody rejected you? Or is that just your perception because of the lens that you're wearing when you go to that party, right? That you're not likable. And so people aren't going to talk. Maybe everybody else has got the same lens. And so everybody's waiting for somebody to come up to talk to them. But you're not thinking that way. You're thinking, oh, it's me. It's me. I'm not likable. Or maybe, and so then your husband says, I thought it was a great party. And you're like, you're lying. It's not a great party. Well, his experience of that party might be different than your experience of that party, right? So he's not lying. He's just got to have a different experience. Or maybe his experience of your sex life is better than your experience of your sex life. And so that may be an art, like, it's fine. I think it's great. The problem is you're not listening to each other. But for me, it's not great. I'm not making a statement about your life. I'm making a statement about my experience here. And so I think that's where we would talk about perceptions. But here's where I think we can kind of also create perceptions that we need to check out. So I'm going to do this. I've done this before. And let me just get a different pen. This isn't going to write very well. Let me get a different pen and we're going to play an exercise. I want you to do it in the chat. Oh, this pen isn't working either. Been using my markers a lot lately here. All right, this one's working. Okay. So we're going to take 3 columns. And the first column, we're going to put in the event. Okay. And then we're going to talk about your feelings or okay. And this will be your perceptions. Okay. So the event is your husband's late. Can everybody see that? So that's the first one. Your feelings are you're angry. Well, why are you angry? Is it because your husband's late? No, you're having certain perceptions about why he's late. So what would some of the perceptions be that you might have that would lead to a feeling of anger because he's late? Put it in the chat. See what comes up. What would some of the thoughts that you would be having, or perceptions? Thoughts and perceptions are similar. So what would be some of the thoughts you would have about the reasons he's late that would cause you to feel angry? Anybody have any ideas? You see anything in the chat, Susan?
I'm not seeing anything yet. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
The story we tell ourselves.
Okay. So what is the story, Lori, that we would be telling ourselves that would lead us to feel angry? He's late because he's drinking with his friends. He's drinking at the bar. Okay. That would be an angry feeling. He's having an affair with his secretary. That would be another reason that we would feel these feelings. Not necessarily because he's late, but we're perceiving he's late because he's doing something he shouldn't be doing, right? Right? Or he doesn't respect my time. All right. So he's inconsiderate. Right? Now, let's say he comes home and says, oh, no, it was just bad traffic. Well, are you going to believe him or not believe him? Right? You've created a story that's created a feeling of anger in you. He's saying this. Is this a fact, or is this just your perception of things? Right? But it's creating a lot of drama in the relationship. Or maybe you don't feel angry. Maybe you feel worried. Well, what perceptions would you be having? Same thing. Your husband's late. What perceptions would you be having? Yeah, his work is always more important than me. That would be your perception. What if he's late and you're not feeling angry? You're feeling worried. You wouldn't be having these perceptions. What perceptions would you be having? Maybe it's a car accident. Maybe he got carjacked in this culture. You never know. He's in an accident. Right. So you would be having completely different thoughts about why he's late. And so that's where we have to be careful. So here's what I would give you as an answer to your question. Those were a long explanation. So here's what I want you to think about. And this is, so lies, you're only sure they're lies for sure. When you have facts to support evidence that they're telling you a lie. Like, no, I didn't spend any money, and yet there's money missing from the ATM. No, I didn't. You don't know what he spent the money on. Or no, I wasn't late. Yes, you were late. It's 5 o'clock. You said you would be home at 4 o'clock. Right? And you don't know why he's late. You don't know what he spent the money on unless you have, now I have receipts. I see you spent money on this. I looked at the credit card. You went to a hotel last week. So now I have, you're lying, and I see that you watched porn. I'm watching you watch porn. I see it on our history. He's lying. He's saying, no, I don't know who did that. So he's trying to create confusion, but you have the facts in front of you. So when you have the facts in front of you and he's still lying, all right, that's where you can't trust the story he's telling himself. But if you don't have facts and you just have perceptions, like, oh, I have a gut feeling he's cheating on me. The reason he's not home is he might be with his secretary. I think you would be hard pressed to accuse him of lying until you had more facts. Right. And so I think that's where the counselor is trying to help each party be careful that you're not jumping to conclusions that this is true, and I know it for sure, just because you have a feeling that he's late because he's cheating on you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more important to look for the facts or it's proof that he's lying to you in some way. And sometimes that's hard to come by. That's sometimes really hard to come by.
Yeah. And can I add something to that? Because I'm working on this charting for a long time. And oftentimes in that event category or the fact category that Leslie has there on the sheet, you can be subjective. And you don't want to be subjective there. So if you put in there, the fact is he was drunk, and he says, but I wasn't drunk, that could be subjective, right? If you say the fact is he had 13 drinks, right? That's more objective. And so it's harder to argue about that, right? It's harder to have a perception about 13 drinks than it is he was drunk.
Or he drank the whole bottle. It's empty.
Yes.
Right.
But if you say he had 13 drinks to the counselor and he says, no, I only had one, then there's deception, right? That's not an issue of perception. That's an issue of deception, right? Somebody's lying there. Right. He either had 13 drinks or one drink.
Right. Or if you go to the counselor and you say, he called me a effing blah, 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 and he said, I never did. That's just your perception. That's not perception. That's deception. If he called you those things, right? So he may be lying to the counselor, and then the counselor, of course, doesn't know who's telling the truth.
Exactly.
So those are the kinds of things that get murky in a counseling office.
Absolutely. And so you're taking care of yourself by saying, I recognize there's lying happening, and the counselor doesn't recognize that. So this is no longer good for me. So I think that's the right move.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question number 2, lying. What if he was lying for years about porn, but is not anymore? Had counseling, et cetera, has moved beyond, yet now lies to me about going fishing. Pattern seems really similar. Yet he thinks it's not porn, so it's not bad. Just lying about sneaking off fishing is not as bad as lying about porn. I think the problem is the lying, and the porn was a symptom of a deeper problem. Am I wrong?
Well, there's deception happening, right? And so there's still deception happening. So yes, there is a deeper problem. So I guess the curious question would be, why don't you want to tell me when you're going fishing? What do you think will happen if I know the truth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so is he feeling like a little adolescent who has to ask his parent for permission to go somewhere, and he doesn't want to be told no, so he's going to go sneak and not tell you because that's what he wants to do? So I think that this is important. We'll talk a lot about this. We're doing a workshop next Thursday. I haven't mentioned that. The screen has told you how to sign up for it. But we're going to talk about the whole aspect of controlling another person. And oftentimes abuse, if he doesn't hit you, but it's still abuse, you're still being controlled. But maybe we're trying to control. We're trying to control what they do with their time. And we're not allowing them to function as an adult, to make decisions like, I want to go fishing. That doesn't mean it's a good time for the family, and we can talk about that. But I do want to go fishing. Fishing is important to me. I like this. And, you give me a hassle every time I go fishing. So, of course, I'm tempted not to tell you. So I think Susan's asking an important question for you to consider. But is it a problem that he just you know, wants to do what he wants to do with no accountability or responsibility. And so he lies about it.
Mhm.
I don't know. Just be careful not to make up the story about that. But I think the
Mhm.
question, hey, why can't you tell me you're going fishing? Is a really good question.
Mhm.
I can understand why he wouldn't tell you he's watching porn. Okay. But why can't he tell you he's going fishing? That seems like a pretty benign thing for someone to want to do.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And oftentimes this stems out of he's afraid you're going to have some feelings. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be angry. And he doesn't know how to deal with that. And he just wants to skirt around it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'd be great to be able to talk about that. If he could be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so
And I
hard
think,
for you to tell me?
right. And I think this is the people pleaser in men sometimes is they don't want they don't want the hassle of having to have an argument about doing something they want to do. So they just go do it and then lie about it. Right.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think this is something we have to look at is, are we trying to micromanage what they do? And are they trying to micromanage what we do? That's not what marriage does. Right? We don't
Mhm.
micromanage each other. All right. What about a complete lack of information? He doesn't communicate about anything beyond small talk, nothing concerning family, friends, etc. Feels certain that he's intentionally keeping information from me. So that's a perception. Okay. So if you asked him about it, like, why don't I have information about our bank accounts? Why don't I have information about your job and what your goals are, what your dreams are? Do you ever talk about that and ask him why?
Yeah, I think that's a great start.
Mhm. So, not all, I meet lots of really good men and women who are emotionally or mentally, cognitively just immature. They just didn't learn certain skills in marriage. I mean, in growing up. And so now they come into marriage needing these skills and they don't have them. And for a man, that's very shaming. It's very
Mhm.
shaming to be a man and not know how to do certain things, especially if your father knew how to do those or whatever. Men don't like to not know. I remember driving around in circles before we had GPS. And I'd say, why don't we just stop for directions? No, you think I don't know how to get there? Well, obviously you don't know how to get there. We're really lost. But he didn't want to admit to himself, we don't know how to get there. I will figure it out. And so I think that men are more that way than women. But I've done this before and I'm going to do this real quick. So you've said superficial conversation. Okay. So superficial chit chat, I call it. You do that. Hi, hello, how are you? Is level 5. Okay. It's a level 5. It's necessary. We do it all the time, but it's not terribly deep. And then the next one is the news, which you're asking for information. So what's the news? Like it's raining today, right? It's not superficial conversation. It's raining today. Oh, the debate is on tonight. Don't take any money out of the ATM today because we're low on cash and I'll put my paycheck in tomorrow. So this is just news or information. All right. You're saying he's not even giving you that. All right. So that's level 4. The next is my thoughts. Okay. So I think we shouldn't spend too much money this month because we're saving for vacation in August. So don't buy anything special this month. So that's more than just information. This is what I think. This is my opinion. This is what I prefer. I'd like to paint our dining room next month purple. What do you think? So
Mhm.
we're giving our opinion. Maybe you're in a Bible study and the teacher's talking about stuff and you think it's wrong. And you say, hey, I don't really think the Bible teaches that. I don't think the Bible teaches God hates divorce. I heard someone talk on Facebook Live. I don't think it teaches that. And you're going to give your thoughts. Okay. So what happens in these levels especially when you get to a little bit more personal, your thoughts, someone smacks you down. That's ridiculous. I don't know where you heard that. You're probably not going to keep talking. You usually shut down. Okay. The next level is our feelings. Okay. And then the next level is, total transparency. All right. So we don't usually get naked in front of most people. All right. Doesn't mean we're not honest. We can be very honest at these levels, but we're not letting anyone take our clothes off until we really trust them. That's why God says marriage is for here. Right. But maybe some families never, I met somebody whose family never talked beyond here. they never ever talked about their thoughts, their feelings. And the parents may have said, do this, do that, but it wasn't a conversation. So they didn't care about the kids' thoughts at all. Like, do what I say and let's not talk about it. Kids are to be seen, not heard.
Mhm.
So this person never learned how to have any kind of deeper conversations. Or when they tried to, maybe they were put down, or that's ridiculous. Why would you think that? That's crazy. And so it's like, I don't want to be shamed for having an opinion or having feelings. Or so if this is all you got in your marriage, it might be interesting to look at his family of origin and see if they go any deeper. Because if they don't, maybe it's a simple he never learned how and he's embarrassed. And maybe
Mhm.
he's not aware that he doesn't know how to go deeper. He just has no idea because he's never even been in a conversation that went deeper other than listening to one because he doesn't know how to do it. And I don't know if that makes sense or is helpful, but that might be part of it.
I think it's very helpful.
And understand that when we're critical, like if you take off your clothes in front, if you're a newlywed and you take off your clothes in front of your new husband and he makes one critical remark about your body, what's that going to do for you? You're like, right? And so be careful because when someone shares their thoughts and feelings, that's pretty vulnerable. And when we give vulnerable and we receive harm through criticism, oh, I didn't realize that your cellulite was so bad on the back of your legs. It's like, what? You know, do not say that. Right. Do not say that when we're about to be vulnerable. Don't be critical because that will shut someone down from being open with you.
Mhm.
I'm horrified how much my husband of 23 years has been lying, and he's lying to our girls, and they know the truth. It's heartbreaking to watch. It is heartbreaking to watch. It's heartbreaking to watch someone spiral downward, isn't it? It's heartbreaking to watch them be so self-deceived. You know, we've talked about it, that even Diane Langberg, many of you know, is a trauma therapist, and she says self-deception is not the worst thing that we can do, but it's the means by which we do the worst things. You know, self-deception is the worst thing we can do, but it's the means by which we do the worst things. We lie to ourselves so that we can hurt other people and tell ourselves we're being a leader, we're being the head of the home, we're doing them good. We lie to ourselves when we do horrible things. And so it's easy to see your husband doing it, but part of our conversation today was looking at you doing it too. We lie to ourselves. And I find most women lie in pretty negative ways to themselves, about themselves, which keep you hogtied into a very dependent, childlike position, which makes you more easily abused. It's a tumble-down effect, you see? And so we really want you to begin to change internally the way you see yourself. Because when you see yourself as a worthwhile, purposeful, created in God's image person, other people don't have so much power over you.
Yeah.
Next question. What if it's only been a few occasions? Susan, do you have a hard stop at 10?
No, I don't. 1:30 Eastern.
What if it's only been a few occasions spread over several years, but still are lies, or I forgot to tell you, or just picking up for information deliberately?
Well, so I think we're looking for patterns, right? So a few times over several years, I don't know, is that a pattern? And how do you know it's deliberately? Is it, I forgot to tell you? Maybe, once every 3 years, he forgets to tell you something. Is it deliberate, or is it genuinely he forgot? Leaving out information, he may not think certain things are important, and you may think they're very important. And so he left it out. And maybe he deliberately left it out because he didn't view it as important, not realizing that you would think it's important. So when we're talking about patterns, I think it's a little bit more than, once every couple of years. What would you say about a pattern, Leslie?
Yeah, I would say a consistent pattern of lying about most everything to you, and I can think of things I didn't fully tell my husband about because I didn't think it was important. And then he thought it was important. So I wasn't intending to lie. I was just like, oh, this happened or this came and, I didn't tell all the details. And I'm not a big detail person in terms of all that kind of conversation. So I would never give anybody as much details as somebody else might want to know in all of that unless I knew that they needed all the details. So it might be more of that perception thing of him not perceiving how much you wanted to know those things in terms of all the information. So I think that's where it's really important not to characterize someone as purposely misleading you, unless it serves a purpose for them. Like, hey, I purposely misled you so that you would sign the cosign on the loan, but I never told you it was a cosign on the loan that was going to be for our house for $60,000. You know, it's that purposely misleading could be very factual. You're saying, wait a minute, you knew I was against the loan. You knew I said no. You told me this was for our tax forms. You know I was running out of the house that day. I signed it quickly. I didn't realize what you were asking me to sign, and you didn't tell me. That was a deliberate deception. So those are the facts of where it would be different, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this was a statement in the that was given to a form that they didn't want to put on the Facebook page, but I don't think it's a question, but I think it's true. When lying comes in the form of deception from someone who's narcissistic, and again, I think we have to be careful, just because they look narcissistic doesn't necessarily make them narcissistic in a diagnostic kind of way. It is so subtle because facts and truth are mixed with distortions. And it is sometimes, I mean, if all we have to do is turn on the news and listen to our politicians, they are very good at subtly mixing facts with lies. They are very good liars. They are very good at gaslighting, which is a sort of subtle form of lying, misperceiving, creating smoke and fog so that you don't know what is true. So that's why most of us don't trust what they have to say fully. We're not saying, oh, they're the right person for us because everything they say is true. We sort of know that they're mixing both and I don't know that they're all narcissists. They might be, but they're all doing it. And so I think that when that happens, it's very hard to trust that person or feel close to them because, first of all, their values are off in that what I want to do is win. And so it doesn't matter how I twist reality. In order to win, I've got to twist reality to make my side look better than your side, right? And that is a feature of a narcissist. They do want to win. They do want to be right. And so they will mix truth with lies in order to create a narrative that suits their story, whatever they want to put out. But I mean, get practice watching our politics right now. You'll be able to see gaslighting every day, everywhere, right? Absolutely. They're creating their own narrative that they want you to see. They're not giving you all the facts so that you can make a good decision for yourself. And both sides are doing it. All right. My husband and I are separated. There was a lot of emotional abuse and occasional physical. My husband is doing a program through the church and seems to be really trying to work on himself. We went on a date Friday night and I was saying how I was feeling and brought up the time he spit in my face. I was not bringing it up to throw it in his face. This is where my heart was. He said I was being dramatic and I could tell he was upset. He said he was tired of me throwing things from the past in his face and he was tired of walking on eggshells. Since last weekend, he turns everything around like before and I'm just not sure. He said I must think I'm better than God because I can't forgive and forget. Is this abusive or am I thinking too much into it? Am I making this into a bigger thing than what it really is? I am so exhausted.
Yeah. Well, I see that you're separated for a reason, right? And so there hasn't been a lot of change on his side yet, at least consistent change over time where you can begin to talk about these things in a healthy way and he can take ownership. So just in his comments, we're seeing his growth isn't where it needs to be or where you would probably like it to be if you're to come back together. And, you know, that forgive and forget comment, right, is you're not going to forget. You aren't forgetting.
Or should you?
Forget.
Or should you?
Or should you? Yeah. Even if you've forgiven, your body is not going to allow you to forget that. And so you can't really process through it and have a good relationship until you can talk through it and he takes ownership and is able to see the harm that it caused you and take ownership and apologize for that. And so it is a useful conversation to have, but I can see he's not ready yet for that. So I don't think you're expecting too much, but he's not there yet. So it's not realistic to expect him to be there yet because he's not.
He's not. And the fact that, so I would say a little bit additional, he seems to be trying to work on himself. So at least my experience for abusive men, it's all about them. And their feelings are more important than your feelings. And their needs are more important than your needs. And so when this came to a head where you were trying to share your feelings and it triggered his shame feelings, then you become the bad guy because his feelings are more important than yours. His feelings of shame shouldn't have been triggered. You should be able to get over it. You should be able to forgive him. You should be able to forget. So that pattern is really entrenched in him as an abusive man, and that's not changed. Whether it will change or won't change, I don't know. It might be he needs more time, or it might be he's just playing a game, right? And he's going through the treatment, but he's not really changing. So I definitely would stay separated. I wouldn't feel bad about what you did. I would say what you did exposed his heart, and it's unfinished, whether his repentance is genuine. But let me just say, one of the elements of repentance, if he truly is repentance, when you are truly repentant, you don't get mad when someone, I mean, you might feel shame, but you don't demonize the person who lets you know of the harm they caused. Like if someone crashed into my car and they said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so repentant," and I send them the bill for the damage and they say, "You're always trying to rub it in my face and I crashed into your car." I mean, that's ridiculous, right? They would pay for the damage. So by you saying how that made you feel, that he spit in your face, and he couldn't even say, "I can't even imagine how humiliating, how awful that felt for you," that he is just very far away from becoming a healthy person, because any healthy person would show empathy for the pain they caused someone else to some degree. Even when you say, "Ouch, you stepped on my toe," and they didn't mean it. They don't say, "Oh, what's wrong with you? Why can't you just let it go? You're so critical." They say, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." Right? So he's so far from being a healthy individual that I hope you have a long-term separation planned, because I didn't see one inkling of what he's working on in that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he's continuing. So he couldn't even go home and say, "Wow, I really blew it. I didn't handle myself as a godly man. I didn't handle myself in a loving way." So he isn't doing, or he doesn't have the capacity to self-reflect, because even when we do mess up, like if I said something in a meeting, or I said something to my husband or my kids or grandkids that was cruel or mean, my conscience is pricked, and afterwards I'm like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." And I'm on the phone. I go to them and say, "I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that." He didn't even come back then. He didn't come back. And now he's telling you, "I'm tired of you throwing everything." In other words, he's intimidating you not to do it again. So this isn't boding well with me in terms of his seemingly getting it. I don't think he's gotten it at all yet. Whether he continues to go to work and do his work and get it, maybe, but I would say you are not making it into a bigger thing. It is a sign. It wasn't a big, it wasn't an abusive moment like it had been in the past, but it was certainly very sniffing, like very familiar territory. And I wouldn't at all hold out any hope that he's changing anytime soon. My husband avoids lies to himself about his family dysfunction, yet tries to make me feel guilty about having a reaction to dysfunction. How can he make you feel guilty if you know what you know? Right? So here it goes back to you taking care of you. If I know what I know, and I trust myself. So when I was in this person's presence, I know that they put me down. I know that they, weren't welcoming. I know that they didn't, whatever it was that they did to me or did to us. I know what I know, right? And why would you feel guilty because you know what you know? You might feel sad that he doesn't agree with you, but why would you feel guilty? Thoughts, Susan?
Yeah. So she's saying he tries to make her feel guilty. Yeah, because he may want you to side with him. right? It may be a tactic. I don't know if he's lying to himself or his experience with his family feels normal because that's what he grew up with. And usually what we grow up with, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, feels normal. And so he may not be experiencing what you're experiencing. You're a fresh person coming in and you're experiencing it for the first time and it's rubbing you the wrong way because it's not what you're used to. So I don't know. Is he trying to get you to have his same opinion? Maybe stop complaining about his family. I don't know what his tactic is to make you feel guilty, but it would be worth having a discussion about. Can we agree to disagree? These certain behaviors don't feel good to me. Maybe they don't bother you, but I'm certain they do bother me. I think that's what Leslie's saying is you can be firm in your experience and what you know to be true for you and still allow him to have a different opinion.
Yeah, because again, his perceptions of what that is, and for your perception, it might feel very abusive. For his perceptions, it might feel very normal. Right? So I remember working with a client who grew up in a horribly abusive Christian home, and she was dumbfounded that my husband never cursed me out. And she was like, never? And I said, no, I don't think he's ever, like, she goes, he's never called you, I won't say it on Facebook, but the B word. And I said, I'm sure he's thought it, but he's never said it. And she goes, no, I don't believe you. I have never been in any family where a husband didn't curse his wife out. My grandpa was a pastor and he cursed my grandma out all the time. And I'm like, so for her, that experience is very normal. She would, she was she couldn't even fathom that you would live in a relationship where you weren't cursed out with your husband. Right? So for him, that may feel, this is what our family does. We yell and argue with each other and call each other names and, beat each other up verbally over the dinner table. That's just how we do it. And you're like, oh, I don't like being here. Right? Mm-hmm. And so if I need him to agree with me in order for me to be okay, then that's going to cause a lot of conflict. If I can be okay with my feelings, I don't like being that. That's not my cup of tea. Spend an evening arguing with people who put you down when you have an opinion. Maybe you're good with that. I'm not. Then you can be okay. Mm-hmm. Can you discuss the aspect of a spouse withholding and using bits and pieces of information strategically in deceitful ways to keep you in the dark and confused? I think it's a strategy that some people use for sure. I mean, look at the politicians who give us pieces of information and keep us in the dark strategically to keep us confused. It's happening. It's happening. And we know it. And it feels frustrating. So the question really begins, how can you find out the information you need to know in a different way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, even Satan tried this with Jesus, right? Little bits of truth kind of fed out, how did Jesus keep from being in the dark? Well, for one, he was the light, but staying connected to God, and we can do that, and not being confused by telling ourselves truth, and making sure we're firm in what we believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, if that's the relationship that you believe you have with this person, then perhaps you don't trust them. You don't, feel confident. So what do you need to do to feel safe is the question. So if someone's giving you bits and pieces about your finances or about your retirement accounts, about your whatever, and that's your accountant, what would you do? You would fire them. You would get a different accountant. Now, I'm not saying you can fire your husband and get a different husband if that's your husband, but I do think that you can go to your bank, you can look up records, you can check credit ratings. There's things you can do to factually support what he's saying or not factually, and even say, hey, at this stage of, and I think this is a really great, for those of you who are 50 and older, I think this is a really great line that you can do that, hey, I need to see it in writing because for me, I'm much better in writing. I need to see the accounts and where it's going and all that. What if something happened to you and you dropped over dead? I wouldn't have a clue as to what's going on. I need more information. not you're lying to me and withholding. I just need more information so that I can feel
Mhm.
peaceful inside. If something happened to you, I would know where things are, what to do. I'm not comfortable not being in the dark anymore. When you assert yourself, you're going to get one of two things. You're going to go like, oh, all right, well, let's sit down and go over this. Or, and then you'll see if he's actually doing more misleading or
Mhm.
whatever. Or he's going to avoid you and not do it. And that may be more information that he is deceiving you about something pretty important that maybe you need to get some more information about in a different way, right? For your safety. And I think,
Mhm.
if you sniff fire, I wouldn't ignore it. I would look around and see what might be burning so that it doesn't burn your house down.
Mhm.
Any other
Yeah.
thoughts?
No, I think that's great. Investigate a little bit and be direct and what you need in order to not feel confused and be in the dark, and
Right.
see how he handles that. I love that.
Yeah. And I think this is a strategy that I just want you guys to think about. If I talk about what I need versus what you're doing wrong,
Uh-huh.
you're more likely to be heard. So if you say, hey, why aren't you giving me this information? Why are you hiding everything from me? Why aren't you telling me everything I need? Anybody would get defensive and argumentative. If you just say, hey, I need more information to feel peaceful inside. I need to know what things are, where things are, where our passwords are, where things are. If something were to happen to you, heaven forbid, I'd feel so stupid, and our kids wouldn't know, I wouldn't know. I'm not okay with that anymore. You're not saying anything about him being deceptive or him being sneaky or him being a liar. You are saying, this is what I need. Now, whether or not he cares about that will say a whole lot about him and the state of your marriage, right? But you don't have to accuse him of anything, which is going to probably backfire in terms of getting information.
I think that's a fabulous point, that many people don't do that work of really verbalizing what they need. They move right to complaining about the other person's behavior, and that inner work is so important. It's important for creating a safe, good relationship and knowing yourself well so that you can get what you need, so that you can rely on yourself, trust yourself, feel safe with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And if someone doesn't care about what you need and they're pretty overt about that, like, I don't really care what you need, I'm not doing it. Well, then that tells you something about the nature of your relationship, that you're not a person to care about. You're an object that's being used for finances, for housekeeping, for sex, for mothering his kids, but you're not a person to care about. And so how do you do marriage with someone who doesn't care about you? Right. But it gives you clarity. And so we're talking about lying and lying to ourselves. So if I have and we've talked about it, if I have a lump on my breast, I need clarity. What is this? What is this? Is this just a little cyst? Is this a milk duct plug? Or if I'm younger, if this is a breast tumor, what is this? This is something. So what do? I go to the doctor and get more information, so I know what I'm dealing with. The truth is sometimes ugly and hard. We talked about that yesterday. But if we lie to ourselves, say, oh, this is nothing, I'm not going to think about this, it'll be fine. Well, then we're lying to ourselves. And then we're not taking care of ourselves. And we're not stewarding the one precious life that God gave us. And the parable of the talents is a really good illustration. God has put things in you, ladies. We just read it in Psalm 139 of talents and gifts. He says in Ephesians 2 that you are his workmanship, created before the foundation of the world to do good works that glorify him. That's your life purpose. It's not just to be a role for some man. It's it might be to be a wife and a mom. All those things are wonderful privileges and opportunities. But you have gifts and abilities. But if you don't steward those because you're afraid, what happened to the steward who just buried his talent? Because he was afraid. God doesn't want us to live in fear. Perfect love casts out fear. Now, you might not have any kind of perfect love with your spouse, but if you believe what God says, he wants to empower you to live in strength and courage, not in fear and holding back and criticism and accusing. So if you need something from him or from someone else, state it. I need you to tell me where this is, or I need you to give me more information. I don't have enough information about that. Why do you need to know? Because I want to have peace inside. It gives me peace to know what's going on. And if he doesn't care about that, then that's like finding out you have breast cancer. It's bad, hard news, but it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. How do you help your children when you know their father is lying and deceiving them like he did to me over the years? The problem is that they seem to believe him more than me, who by the grace of God have been stable and been there for them. If your children are adults, I don't know that it's your job to steward their relationship with their father. I think it's their job to steward that. And if they get confused, they can come to you and ask you. Any other thoughts, Susan?
No, I think even when they're children, is sometimes you have to let those natural consequences happen. If he's lying to them, they're eventually going to know that, right? And then you may be able to talk about it with them when they know that. But I don't think you can say, you don't realize this, but your father's lying to you, right? Because that's going to set them against their father. But allowing
Or
it
you,
to
depending on who they decide to believe, right?
Exactly. Yes. So they will learn over time if he's lying to them, and then you may be able to deal with it. And it is sad. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, just I don't think that's a good battle to fight, because sometimes we do that because we want them to see what a rotten guy he is and all that. We don't want them to love him. But if you truly love your children, understand that they need to have a relationship with both parents, even if one of them was a rotten husband. He might be a C+ father. I don't know. And if he's not, they'll discover it and let them discover it and say, when they come to you with a broken heart, I am so sorry that he's hurt you like he hurt me. I am so sorry. I didn't want to interfere in your relationship with him because you seemed like you were really doing well with that. And it's not my place to rat on your dad, but it's sad, isn't it? And then you are having a relationship with your child that they're not feeling like you're trying to poison us against dad, or they don't love dad anymore. They don't love you. You're just going to alienate them from one of you. And it's going to blow up in your face one way or the other. So I wouldn't get involved in that. My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and I'm currently 30 weeks pregnant with our second child. Last Friday, he told me he's never been attracted to me physically, and he doesn't love me romantically, just as a best friend. And he also feels trapped in our marriage because he knows God wants us to stay together. I've gained a significant amount of weight since losing my mother's suicide, postpartum, and then being diagnosed with 2 autoimmune diseases. He did kiss another woman after our first daughter was born, and it didn't tell me until 2 years later. I chose to forgive him and let the Lord heal our marriage. Honestly, I feel very stupid because my perspective of where our marriage was and what he's described are vastly different. But he also led me to believe he was saying he has a new love for me in our marriage and is in such a good place. I feel so defeated. I feel like his love is conditional. I already have things in place with my doctor after the baby's born to get my weight down. I believe love is a choice and not a feeling. And I also feel he lacks understanding for anything I've gone through in the last 5 years of our marriage. I don't want him to resent me, and I feel so insecure about myself now. I don't know how to navigate this. God has pressed on my heart to keep being a good wife and has shown me some of the ways I need to improve to show respect, which I was lacking due to my own emotions toward him. Do you have any advice to navigate this time? Any advice to navigate this time? Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a lot of really hard feelings going on. And I'm so sorry that you're being treated this way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cruelness happening here. And so I think for your own support, whatever you need, good friendships, counseling, I think that's going to help you navigate staying well for yourself. And I can imagine that you don't have a lot of admiration for him. So if you're talking about respect, you want to show up in a respectful way. That is a noble thing to work on, but I certainly understand why you don't admire him. He's not being admirable as a husband. It's very sad.
It is very sad. It is very sad. And I think I can't add anything to what Susan said. What she said was very wise, and to really take good care of you. And I think this is really important. He wasn't honest with you if he truly wasn't attracted to you. As a sex partner or whatever, obviously he's attracted to your personhood because he wants you as a best friend. So he's attracted to your character. He's attracted to who you are. And weight gain can make some people feel that way, but be that as it may, I just want you to know that just because one person doesn't find you attractive, or however he put that doesn't mean you're not. It doesn't mean you're not. And we've used this analogy before in our groups. I don't know if I've ever used it on Facebook, but I all want you to put what flavor of ice cream. If you could go to it sounds bizarre compared to what we're talking about right now, but stay with me. If you could go to 31 flavors right now and get a dish of ice cream or a cone of ice cream, what would you pick? So put it in the chat real quickly, and then we're going to wrap up. Put your ice cream flavor that you would pick today, right now, into the chat. What flavor would it be? Everybody put in there. Okay. What would you pick? And my chat doesn't seem to be moving.
Chocolate marshmallow.
Do that one.
Coconut.
Cookies and cream. Chocolate. So we've got 4 people, 4 different flavors. Pistachio. 5. Okay, 5 flavors. All right, chocolate chip cookie dough. Peanut butter. Look at this. Chocolate all the way. Pistachio. Okay, so 2 pistachios, but a lot of different ones. Right? So what I want you to notice is that we're not all attracted to the same flavor. Strawberry. We're not all attracted to the same flavor. Butter almond. Okay, there's a lot of different ones. That's why they have 31 flavors. Birthday cake. Okay? So we're not all attracted to the same flavors. And this is what women do. When someone comes into the ice cream parlor and he's a hot guy and you're an ice cream flavor, and this hot guy says, "Ooh, I think I will have some of that chocolate marshmallow." The strawberry goes, "What's wrong with me? I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I better be chocolate marshmallow because he likes chocolate marshmallow. I can't be strawberry. Something's wrong with strawberry. I got to try to be." Don't. Because the person who likes strawberry will find you and love you. So it's not about you, but we aren't all attracted to the same things, right? Just as you noticed here, and it doesn't make any flavor unworthy. It doesn't make any flavor not delicious. It doesn't make any flavor unattractive. And so I want you to understand that if you're strawberry and he was attracted to chocolate marshmallow and he wasn't honest about what he really wanted, or maybe he didn't even know what he really wanted, right? That often happens because people marry young and aren't fully mature as to what they really want, right? I know the furniture I picked when I first got married is not the furniture I would like now, right? So we change. So what's important though is that if you're a strawberry, or you're the one who's been told I'm not into strawberry, we tend to feel like, what's wrong with me that you wouldn't want me? And that's not the thing. Your job, God formed you in your mother's womb as strawberry or chocolate marshmallow or peanut butter cup or whatever it is. He's made us all different. And your work, your internal work, is to be the absolute most delicious strawberry you could be. Not trying to be chocolate marshmallow. You'll never be a chocolate marshmallow. Be the strawberry flavor God made you. And so this is why doing your own work and being honest with yourself, I'm not chocolate marshmallow. Right? If people call me up and ask me to speak at their luncheon, I hate speaking at luncheons because I'm not a funny speaker. I talk about hard things. Nobody wants to hear talking about liars and narcissists, right? So, no, I'm not the speaker you want. I'm not funny. I'm not short, and I don't talk about anything light, right? So it's okay. You don't want me, and I can't pretend to be what I'm not. Like, I don't enjoy speaking about things that are just fluff. It's not who I am. But there are wonderful speakers who can do that really well. Right? Pick them. And so it's really important for you to know who you are and who you're not, and what you want and what you don't. Right? And so as he's maturing and you're maturing, maybe having those honest, compassionate conversations with the other without feeling like I'm being rejected, I think is the thing I'm trying to say to you. This isn't about rejecting. It's about learning who you are and who you're not. Right? And being the best version of you, not trying to be what he wants. Be what God made you to be. That's your order. That's why we talk about not being a man-centered woman, but a God-centered woman. God made you. Your husband didn't make you. So be who God made you to be. Right?
Mhm.
Any other final thoughts on that, Susan?
No, I think that's great. You brought that out.
Yeah. So if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet and these things are resonating with you, I think it'll be really a safe space for you to meet up with other women, as well as to hear all the different ways that a husband might devalue, dismiss, and objectify you without ever using any kind of physical abuse, but it's still abuse. And what do you do about it is a really more important question. What do you do about that? And it's really more of your work to do, because you can't fix him. You're not going to change him. He might decide to change him, but you can't change him. But what do you need to do? And that's what we're going to be talking about in the workshop. So if this is resonating with you and you're in that kind of situation, please add this to your calendar for next Thursday. I would say, honestly, in all honesty, give yourself, just like this lasted an hour and a half, give yourself about 2.5 hours. We do the hour workshop. It's an hour of teaching. There's not a lot of interaction other than that on the chat. But then afterwards, I will be interacting with you, answering your questions like this, but maybe even a little bit more personal, because you're not worried about social media, and a little deeper. Okay. All right, there's a couple more questions we're going to answer. It looks like we've got a few more, but
quite a few more.
Yeah. And you have a hard stop at 10:30. Is that right? 1:30?
Yes, just a couple minutes from now.
Okay. So let me do one more for you, and then I'll stay and answer a few more. How do you find the strength to get away from a husband who's a constant compulsive liar? So the second to the last one. How do you get the strength away from a husband who's a constant compulsive liar?
To get away from him. So I'm not sure exactly what you're meaning by get away, but how do you find your strength, right? So I think that's what you tap into, is where do you need more strength? What area of your life in order to get away? And whatever you mean, right? Is that mean separation, finding your own place, finding a job for yourself? So I think starting to build yourself a community is a big part of that. Community is so helpful in getting support, having other women to share with, and then speaking truth into your life, getting yourself strong in that you can function on your own, adult on your own, right? And that may mean getting a job. That may be figuring out how to get an apartment or somewhere different to live. But it's really training yourself, getting all those things in order so that you can leave at some point. So I would just really talk to you more about, where are you feeling weak? And then develop ways to get stronger in that. This community is amazing for that, right? There are a lot of people trying to get strong in this community. So if you can stay close here and learn and start to build those muscles, that would be a great start. What are your thoughts, Leslie?
I would agree that, you build muscles faster if you join a gym and have a community of other women who are building muscles with you and saying, yay, and hey, you didn't show up today. How come? Come back, So it's much easier to have inspiration. We become like the people we hang out with. So hang out with strong women, get to know strong women, get to know women who can think for themselves and make decisions and, know what they need to do. And so we can learn from those women how we can become stronger, and they can show us and teach us and support us and pray for us and encourage us when we feel weak, to realize that maybe we're even stronger than we thought we were. How many of us have done things that we never thought we could do? And so we just kind of are called to live in strength. God calls us to, it pleases him to make us strong. And so when we know that, it's not God's desire for us to live in fear and timidity. He's not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. So when we really begin to believe that instead of the lies that are in our head, we can start to do that. But it's much faster and actually more fun when we do it in a community. Who likes to exercise all by themselves? So when you're with other people who are doing it and you're seeing the results they're getting and you say, I want some of that too, it kind of motivates you. And so I would just encourage you, and we will be opening our doors for those of you who've been wanting to join Conquer. It will be open in a week for another week. So we only open it twice a year so we can take care of the women that we serve that way. But if that's something of interest to you, we'll be talking about that after the workshop is over. So that's what Susan was talking about, our community. And even just being in this community today, I'm sure you've been encouraged by some of the comments of the other women, what they're doing, how they're thinking, how they're addressing the lies in their own lives, so that you can say, wow, that's been helpful to realize I'm not alone and other people are struggling with this too. And so I would just encourage you to do that.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Susan, so much for
Fantastic.
being with us and giving us your time. And I will finish up in about another 15 minutes and answer a couple more questions, but we're going to say goodbye to Susan now. All right.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Let me answer a few more questions before we go. So I'm to assume never learning communication in the family and extreme shyness is an open door for failure in relationship. It certainly can be. It certainly can be. So when you have an unhealthy person in whatever way, let's do some math. Unhealthy person plus unhealthy person equals what? A successful relationship? No. Relationship is a lot of work. A relationship is a lot of work, right? And so to maintain and repair and keep a relationship long-term like marriage is work, right? So you have unhealthy person, and immature person are often who get married, right? Immature person. And as they get married, they learn to mature together and build each other up and sharpen each other's strong points and sand off each other's weak points. And so you grow stronger together in an ideal marriage. But when immature, unhealthy marries immature, unhealthy, and neither one grows and neither one's willing to work at things, it's a disaster in relationships, for sure. And if you have a mature, healthy person, that person usually doesn't marry an immature, unhealthy person because they're not attracted to that person, right? They'll stick up for themselves, and the immature, unhealthy person will go find somebody that they can match with better, right? So when you have a healthy person and an unhealthy person, let's say you're getting healthier and you're working on yourself and you're getting healthier and you're saying, hey, wait, I know what I want. I'm communicating well. I've said what I need. I'm not being disrespectful. So you're getting healthier. And he says, I don't really care what you need. You're the wife. Do what I want. That's what God says. What kind of relationship does that make? And you can't make a healthy relationship or a safe relationship or a trusting relationship all by yourself. So yeah, you're to assume that not learning these skills in a family is an open door for failure in relationship. Yes. So God is calling you, if this is you, he's calling you to grow up, to mature in every way, psychologically, mentally, spiritually, financially, and part of being a healthy adult. I mean, when you raise kids, you raise them to be separate from you, that they can take care of themselves, right? That's the goal. And we have a hard time sometimes with kids launching out of their house, like go get your own apartment. That's the goal, so that you are capable of being a fully functioning adult. And so if you don't learn those skills in your family of origin, you don't learn how to balance your bank book or manage money. You don't learn how to take care of your hygiene. You don't learn to communicate. You don't learn to add and subtract. And all. If you don't learn any of those things, how can you form a new healthy family? You can't. Doesn't mean you can't learn. All right. So the issue isn't that you don't have the skills. It's issue of, can you learn, and are you willing to learn the skills that create healthy community? And if not, no, you're not going to create a healthy family. You're not going to have healthy relationships. So I'm speaking to you now. I'm speaking to you who wrote the question. I'm speaking to all of you. You can't control whether he's going to get healthy. You can't control whether he's going to do his work, but you can control whether you are. You can't control whether he's going to start believing the truth and stop listening to lies or telling lies, but you can control whether you are, right? And if you do it, you will have a healthier relationship, first of all, with God and with you, and maybe some girlfriends who can continue to support you in your growth, even if he doesn't. And just maybe, as he sees you flourishing and growing, he might want some of that for himself too. We've had a number of women in our community who have said back to us, and men who have come up to me personally and said, thank you for helping my wife get strong and healthy. It woke me up to what I needed to do. No promises, but you've seen it when your girlfriends get healthy and they get strong and they're calm and they're losing weight and they're getting strong. You're like, girlfriend, what are you doing? You look great. I want some of that. It's attractive. It's attractive. And so maybe, just maybe, you can be an inspiration to others around you. Would you say that if the person is quick to acknowledge and correct the left out information, that would be a good indication that someone is not deliberately lying? Yes, I would. We're not perfect people. Don't you ever leave out information that you just didn't think was important or you just forgot about. So if they were quick to correct it and make, corrections, that's being human, right? So in our workshop, we're going to talk about the difference between, we're all sinners. So nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We might say something wrong. We might do something wrong. We might be disrespectful. We might have a harsh word. We might react in sinful, destructive ways. What's the difference between someone who's healthy and does that and someone who's toxic and does that? We'll talk about that at the workshop because we're all going to do something wrong, right? So the fact that this person is self-correcting and making amends pretty quick is a good sign of a healthy sinner, right? What if my husband is lying not because he's hiding something, but because he thinks it's funny to lie and see how I'm going to respond? He's got a bit of sadistic humor in him. That doesn't bode well for a trusting relationship, right? So if I find pleasure in causing you pain, whether it's sexually or emotionally, that doesn't sit well with me. How does it sit with you? Right? So if I pull your hair and think it's funny, that you get upset by that. If I trip you and you fall down and I laugh, you want to be married to someone like that? And I would confront him on that. So you find pleasure in causing me pain. That concerns me. And see what he says. What about when someone actually believes their lies, perhaps due to trauma? How do you have a healthy conversation and what can I expect from a relationship that someone refuses to address their trauma? Yeah. So when someone refuses to get healthy, it impacts the relationship, whether they're a diabetic and they refuse to take care of their insulin levels, whether they're Asperger's and they're refusing to admit that so that they can get some training on how to have a healthier relationship with a partner, whether they're have a brain tumor and they're running around with a knife because their prefrontal lobes are disturbed and you're scared of them. If they're not going to get help and treatment, it creates a lack of safety for you, right? And so the refusal to get treatment is not a disease. It's a character problem. It's called pride, arrogance. Like, I will not get help. I don't need it. I'm better than that. They can't help me anyway. Whatever it is, it's pride, right? And so God talks about that. Pride leads to a fall. And if someone is harming others and they're not willing to get the help for that, and even they believe their lies, so you might have a lot of empathy. If someone's got a brain tumor, you have a lot of empathy. It's not their fault they have a brain tumor. It's not their fault that they're getting paranoid, but they're still stabbing you, right? And so your job isn't to be the sacrificial martyr so they can stab you in their craziness. Your job is to say, I got to get out of Dodge. I can't allow myself to be harmed because they won't get help, right? I mean, that makes perfect sense. The prudent see danger and take refuge. One more question, and then we're done. I'm being accused of choosing to believe lies. Is it worth explaining passages of scriptures to those with extremely patriarchal points of view? What do you think? What do you think? First of all, if you were a man, maybe. But if you were a woman, you will immediately be discredited. So probably not. We're going to talk a little bit about patriarchy in the webinar because there is a lot of patriarchy in the evangelical mindset. And that is an oppressive point of view toward women. And so we do want to understand that some men's attitudes toward women are called biblical, but they're really much more cultural, a culture called patriarchy and the system that sets up. So if you're dealing with a very strongly patriarchal church that, kind of the Bill Gothard, Happy Shiny Family, if you watch that documentary, church atmosphere, for a woman to speak up and say anything about what a man is doing is not valued and not listened to. So my guess is you would be casting your pearls before swine. Nobody would listen to you and it wouldn't matter. I'm not saying you can't try, maybe writing a letter or even just saying the first sentence. Would you be open to some feedback from me? And the answer probably would be no. But you could ask and see. But probably the open part isn't going to happen because they don't believe that women are as intelligent as men or can teach a man anything. right? They don't believe a woman should teach a man anything. So for you to offer to teach them something about the scriptures, which they know everything about, this wouldn't be acceptable to them, psychologically, emotionally, let alone spiritually. So I don't think it would be helpful, but you could try if you want to see what happens. Surprise me. I would love to be surprised by that. All right, we are going to go. We're going to do another Facebook Live tonight, I believe. Oh, no, not tonight. Tonight is my pickleball night. I am going to play pickleball. But let me tell you when our next one is. Our next Facebook Live is tomorrow morning, and we are going to do it at same time, noon Eastern time. And our conversation is going to be about, it's going to be with Coach Elise. And my relationship is hard, just like we've talked about right now. What are my choices? What are my choices? Right? One of the most empowering things about being human is that we get to be conscious that we have choices. Now, some of you might feel like you have no choice, and that makes you feel like a prisoner. When we have choices and we realize we have choices to make, it gives us power. We begin to be empowered that I can make choices, right? And so it's very important for you to understand that part of your own healing and getting healthy is to find out what your choices are so that you know you have them to make. All right. So tune in tomorrow with Coach Elise and I, and we're going to be talking about choices when it's hard. What are your choices? We'll be doing that at noon. And then also tomorrow, we're going to do another one at night. So if you are more of a night owl or you have friends who work and you'd love to invite them to be a part of this, we're going to be doing, how do I let go of all this and just let God work? How do I let go of what outcome I want? Like we all want an outcome. Like I want him to come to his senses. I want him to repent. I want him to change. I want my marriage to survive. I want to, have my kids have a happy, intact family. Of course you do. Of course you do it. All of that is wonderful. It's good. But how do we stay focused on doing the right thing? Because we don't really know what the outcome will be, right? We don't know what the outcome will be. But how do we let that go? Because we become so discouraged when the outcome looks shaky and we don't know what to do. But sometimes we do know what to do. We're just afraid to do it because we want the outcome to be different. And so how do we keep walking in faith when we don't know what the outcome is going to be? And the outcome is something we can't control totally. Okay, so that's our 2 sessions for tomorrow, one in the morning with Coach Elise, one in the, or not morning, but afternoon, noon Eastern time, and 7:30 p.m. Eastern time with Coach Leanne. All right, take care. Don't forget to sign up for the workshop if you haven't already. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.